Tonight is not just about the challenges. It's about potential, community, and what becomes possible when young people are seen, heard, and believed in. And to every young person here tonight, your story, your voice, and your future matter. Every young person deserves to feel safe and hopeful. That is why grassroots organizations like CRS, Take One Studios, and Epic Partners matter so deeply. Trusted relationships, creative outlets, and sport, they're not luxuries, they're lifelines. My donation to BBC Children in Need was made to support this collaborative work. It is helping to fund the Music Mentors program between CRS and Epic Partners, and it is driving forward the physical rebuilding of the community recording studio. Our vision isn't just to rebuild a roof, it's to create a state-of-the-art long-term space where young people can create, connect, and thrive for generations to come.
So you just heard the words directly from Prince Harry himself. And honestly, this message cuts through a lot of the noise that usually surrounds anything connected to him. Because tonight was not about a title. It was not about a royal ceremony. It was not about standing on a balcony, waving at cameras, or performing some carefully choreographed image for the public. It was about young people. It was about community. It was about what happens when someone looks at a young person and says, "Your future matters." And that message is exactly why this moment is getting attention. Prince Harry sent a video message ahead of the premiere of a film created by young filmmakers in Nottingham, and the focus was not on himself. Instead, he highlighted the work happening on the ground through organizations supporting young people, including creative programs, mentorship, and safe spaces where young people can build confidence. And that is something that often gets lost in the endless cycle of royal headlines. Because whenever Prince Harry's name appears, there is always a crowd waiting to turn everything into a debate. The internet can take a simple message about helping young people and somehow transform it into a 48-hour argument about opinions, old grudges, and who is allowed to care. But underneath all that noise, there is a very simple point. A young person finding their voice matters. A young person discovering their talent matters. A young person having a safe place to create matters. And Harry's message was centered around that. He said, "Tonight is not just about the challenges. It's about potential, community, and what becomes possible when young people are seen, heard, and believed in." That sentence carries a lot. Because there's a huge difference between looking at young people as problems to be fixed and looking at them as people with talent waiting to be supported. The first approach asks, what is wrong? The second asks, what is possible? And that difference changes everything. When young people are given opportunities, when they have mentors, when they have places where they can express themselves, they are not just passing time. They are building skills, relationships, confidence, and identity. A recording studio is not just a room with microphones. A creative program is not just an activity. A sports opportunity is not just a game. These places can become turning points. They can be the places where someone discovers a passion, the place where someone meets a mentor who changes their direction, the place where a young person who felt invisible suddenly realizes that their voice has value. And this is why Harry's words about grassroots organizations being lifelines are so important, because communities do not run on headlines, they run on people. They run on the mentors who show up every week. They run on the volunteers who give their time. They run on organizations doing the work quietly when there are no cameras and no applause. And honestly, that kind of work deserves more attention than it usually gets. Because society loves celebrating success after the fact. Everyone wants to clap when someone becomes successful. Everyone wants to tell the story of the person who made it. But people often forget about the support systems that helped that person get there. The teacher, the coach, the mentor, the community center, the safe space, the person who believed in them before everyone else noticed. That is what Harry was highlighting. He was talking about building the foundation. And the foundation is often the least glamorous part, but it is the part everything else depends on. The film premiere in Nottingham is also significant because it puts young creators at the center. Young people are often talked about, they are analyzed, they are turned into statistics. But how often are they actually given the microphone? How often are they given the platform to tell their own stories? That is what makes creative projects powerful. They allow young people to say, "This is how I see the world." Not through someone else's assumptions, not through stereotypes, through their own eyes. And storytelling has always been one of the strongest ways humans connect. A film can show an experience that someone might never understand through a simple conversation. A song can express emotions someone struggles to explain. A creative project can turn a personal experience into something that reaches thousands of people. That is why these spaces matter. They are not just entertainment, they are communication. They are connection. And when Harry talked about rebuilding the community recording studio, he made it clear that the vision goes beyond repairing a building. He said the goal was not simply to rebuild a roof. The goal was to create a long-term space where young people can create, connect, and thrive for generations. That is a completely different mindset, because anyone can look at a problem and provide a temporary solution, but creating something that lasts requires thinking beyond today. It requires asking, what will this place become? Who will it help years from now? What opportunities can grow from this? And that is where community investment becomes powerful. A building can be rebuilt, but a place can become something much bigger. It can become a home for ideas, a home for talent, a home for young people who need somewhere to belong. And the donation connected to this work through BBC Children in Need is also part of that bigger picture. The point was not simply giving money. The point was supporting a project that already had people doing the work. Because real change usually doesn't come from one person arriving and trying to solve everything. It comes from partnerships. It comes from communities being supported. It comes from people already doing important work, getting the resources they need to continue. And this is something that has been a consistent theme in Harry's public work. Whether people agree with him or not, the focus has often been on mental health, young people, veterans, and creating support networks. And that is why moments like this stand out. Because while the loudest conversations online often focus on drama, the actual work is usually quieter. There are no screaming headlines when a young person gains confidence. There are no viral debates when a mentor helps someone discover their ability. There are no endless arguments when a community project keeps running for years. But those things matter. They matter deeply. And maybe that's the uncomfortable part for some critics, because it's easier to debate a person's personality than to discuss the impact of a project. It's easier to argue about someone's choices than to talk about young people receiving opportunities. The internet loves a fight. The internet could probably turn a cup of tea into a political crisis if given enough time. But underneath the noise, this story is simple. A group of young filmmakers created something. A community came together, a project received support, and young people were told something they deserve to hear. Your voice matters. Your future matters. You matter. And that message is bigger than any royal debate. Because at the end of the day, the most important question is not who gets the attention. The question is, who benefits? Who gets the opportunity? Who gets to believe that their dreams are possible? And that is what makes this moment powerful. Because real influence is not only measured by how many people know your name, it's measured by what changes because you showed up. And in Nottingham, the focus was not on a title. It was on a generation of young people being given the tools to create, grow, and imagine something better. And that's a message worth hearing. Because when you look at moments like this, there's a bigger question that goes beyond one speech or one video message. What kind of legacy actually lasts? Is it the loudest headline? Is it the most dramatic argument? Is it the person who dominates a news cycle for a few days? Or is it the person who helps create something that continues long after the cameras disappear? History has always remembered builders differently from performers. The people who create opportunities often do not receive the same attention as the people who create controversy. A person can spend years helping communities, supporting young people, funding programs, and opening doors, but somehow the internet will still spend more time analyzing a facial expression from a 5-second clip. Humanity really did invent the ability to communicate across the planet and then used it to argue about whether someone looked annoyed in a photograph. A fascinating species. But moments like this bring the conversation back to something much more meaningful: impact. Prince Harry's message was not about presenting himself as the solution. It was about highlighting the people already doing the work. That is an important distinction, because sustainable change rarely happens because one person walks in and announces, "I have arrived to fix everything." That approach usually looks impressive for about 5 minutes, and then reality shows up. Real change happens when communities have support, when local organizations have resources, when people who understand the needs of a community are empowered to continue their work. That is why partnerships like the ones Harry mentioned matter. Organizations working directly with young people often see things that outsiders do not. They understand the challenges. They understand the potential. They understand that every young person is not just a story about difficulties. They are a person with creativity, ambition, and ideas. And sometimes all someone needs is one opportunity. One person saying, "I believe in you." One place where they feel comfortable enough to try. One moment where they realize they are capable of more than they imagined. That is why creative spaces are so powerful. A young person entering a studio might not just be learning music. They might be learning confidence. They might be learning discipline. They might be discovering that they can take an idea from their mind and turn it into something real. That process changes people. Creating something teaches patience, it teaches collaboration, it teaches people how to deal with mistakes, and, perhaps most importantly, it teaches them that their voice has value. This is why the idea of rebuilding a community recording studio is so meaningful, because it is not just about equipment, it is not just about walls, it is about creating an environment where young people feel they belong. A lot of conversations about young people focus on what they lack. They focus on statistics, they focus on problems, they focus on challenges. But Harry's message flips that perspective. It asks, what happens when we invest in their strengths? What happens when we give them tools? What happens when we stop underestimating them? That shift matters because expectations can shape people. When someone constantly hears that their background limits them, they may start believing it. But when someone hears that they are talented, capable, and important, it can completely change how they see themselves. And that is exactly what mentorship does. A mentor is not just someone giving advice. A mentor can be the person who helps someone see a future they could not see before. Many successful people can point back to someone who encouraged them, someone who opened a door, someone who gave them a chance. The funny thing is, society often celebrates the final result, but forgets the people who helped create it. Everyone celebrates the athlete after the victory. Few people remember the coach who stayed late. Everyone celebrates the artist after the success. Few people remember the person who encouraged them when nobody was listening. Everyone celebrates the finished building. Few people talk about the foundation. But foundations are everything. And this is why Harry's focus on grassroots work stands out, because grassroots organizations are often where real change begins. They're not always glamorous, they're not always trending, they don't always get millions of views, but they are there, day after day, helping people, creating opportunities, building trust. And trust is one of the most valuable things a community can have. Harry specifically spoke about trusted relationships. That phrase matters because support only works when people feel understood. A young person is more likely to open up, participate, and grow when they feel safe, not judged, not dismissed, not treated like a problem. Safe. And in a world where many young people face pressure from every direction, having a place where they can breathe, create, and connect is incredibly important. The message also touches on something broader. Creativity is not a luxury. For years, arts and creative programs have sometimes been treated like optional extras, something nice to have if there's enough time or money. But creativity is part of human life. Music, film, storytelling, and art have always been ways people process experiences. They help people understand themselves. They help people understand each other. They bring different communities together. A camera can become a tool for expression. A microphone can become a tool for confidence. A stage can become a place where someone who once felt invisible finally feels seen. That is why young filmmakers in Nottingham being celebrated matters. They were not just making a film, they were telling a story, and every community has stories worth telling. Sometimes those stories never reach the world because people never receive the chance. A lack of talent is not always the reason someone does not succeed. Sometimes it is a lack of access, a lack of resources, a lack of someone opening the door. And projects like this are about changing that. Now, naturally, whenever Prince Harry does something positive, there will always be people trying to shift the conversation somewhere else. That has become almost predictable. A project focused on young people suddenly becomes a debate about him personally. A message about community becomes an argument about old issues. A moment of support becomes another battlefield. It's almost like some people cannot allow a simple positive story to exist without dragging it into a competition. But the reality is, young people do not benefit from endless arguments. Communities do not improve because people fight online. The young person picking up a camera for the first time doesn't care about internet battles. They care about having an opportunity. They care about whether someone believes in them. They care about whether there is a place where they can belong. And that's what this project represents. A reminder that behind every headline, there are real people, real lives, real dreams, real futures. The biggest takeaway from Harry's message is not about royalty. It's about responsibility. If someone has the ability to help, why not use it? If someone can support a community, why not do it? If someone can help create opportunities, why not invest in them? That is the heart of this moment. And perhaps the most powerful part is the simplicity of the message. Every young person deserves to feel safe. Every young person deserves hope. Every young person deserves to know that their voice matters. That is not a complicated idea. It shouldn't even be controversial. Yet somehow in today's world, basic kindness and community support can become something people debate. But sometimes the most important things are the simplest. A person being believed in, a door being opened, a chance being given, a future being built. And in Nottingham, that's exactly what this moment was about. Not noise, not drama, not endless arguments. A community, a group of young creators, and a reminder that when people invest in young people, they are not just helping one individual, they are helping shape what comes next. Because the future is not created by waiting for it. It is created by giving people the chance to build it. And tonight, young filmmakers were given that chance. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.